Okay, today we're going to talk about bow noise. This is a Hoyt Satori that I have. I just want to go over a few things, and there's a carbon Z bow too. This basically will apply to all ILF bows, and there's a couple things that you should check for noise. First of all, who should be concerned about noise? Just hunters? And the answer is no. Everybody should be concerned about noise. You see, in nature, you have apples that fall from the trees, you have nuts that fall. All these sounds that fall sound like a thud. And what's not natural is the sound of a twang like a guitar string from a bow, or if you have a loose part and it makes a vibration noise. All those are alarming sounds to animals. When it comes to target archers, they don't put silencers on their bowstrings like Olympic archers. They want to get the most speed they can out of it. But they should also pay attention for different noises on their bow. If the bow just don't sound the same, they should really check everything, all the equipment, stabilizers, sights, things that come loose, other plunges, and make sure everything's all snug. Of course, if you hear a little different sound, the vibration, that's a sign that something's wrong. All right, so let's go over the first thing here. You get yourself an ILF riser, okay? And one of the things about ILF is international limb fittings. You can change the limbs by just plugging them in. You could also align the limbs with these alignment collars here. Let me show you. Okay, you see this Allen key here, right here, okay? This you should loosen up, and then you could adjust this side to side to align your limbs if they're off. Never try to put the Allen key in the limb adjusting screws here and try to crank it and move it without loosening this up first, because you'll wind up stripping this out. Or on a wooden bow, a wooden ILF riser, if you put too much pressure on these and you didn't have it loose, you would actually separate the wood. You'd crack the wood. Okay, so you always loosen that up first. You always loosen that up first and then make your adjustments. I'll talk a little bit more about that adjustment later. But first of all, just make sure that this is snug. And when you go to check the snugness of these, you put the Allen key in and look, 2 fingers. See, you make sure it's just snug. Okay, it don't go nowhere, right? That moved actually a little bit, okay? I haven't checked that one. Okay, that's good for the video. Let's try this here, this one here. Okay. Put it in here. That one's snug, so the other side was a little loose. Okay, we're gonna try this one here. That one's turning too. Let's try and turn this one here a little bit here. Yeah, that one's solid, and this one here was a little loose. Okay, I'll explain a little later about adjusting the limbs. Okay, so now we have those snug. You don't really have to worry about noise coming from that. If you happen to have some kind of quiver, you could start without the quiver mounted. You know, start with just the bow and the string and the silencers and try to get it as quiet as you can by adjusting the brace height, and then add this later. But on this Hoyt Satori, you could look on the Bare Bow Joe how I add a quiver on my Hoyt Satori. I have this mounted, it's solid, and it's not going to make any noise. Okay, so what I'm going to do is show you here these limb detents, all right? They're little springs, and they slide into the grooves here, okay? Now, what you want to do is just make sure you don't want to really put a lot of force on these either, but just put an Allen key in them, and just like I said, 2 fingers, just make sure that these are snug, okay? You don't want these loose either, okay? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the bow together. This is my 17-inch Hoyt Satori with 45-pound DOS limbs that I use for hunting. And I'm going to put it together with a string that don't have any silencers, just so you can hear the twang. I'm sure most of you guys know what I'm talking about, but there might be 1 or 2 new people interested in learning how to shoot ILF, and it's good for them to see the difference. I'll put it on just a plain old string, and then I'll put the string on with the silencer so you can hear the difference. I'm going to stop the video. I want to talk about the limb adjustments. Before you, on a Hoyt Satori, before you can adjust your tiller, which is the distance between the limb and the string, you have to loosen a lock nut so you can loosen this. So there's actually a screw in here, an Allen lock nut that you put the key in. Oh, there we go, okay. And you have to back this off, loosen it, loosen it a turn or two, and then you can make adjustments. And what you want to do is have the tiller adjusted. I shoot 3 under, and I like to have it even. So you measure the top and the bottom, and you get them even. Some shooters shoot split finger, and I'm not sure, I believe they like a positive tiller. You can go a little positive on the top, maybe 1/8 of an inch, 3/16. It's all about how the arrows fly, how to tune, how the tuning goes for your arrows to match the bow. But I just want to touch base on that you have to loosen these up before you make an adjustment, and then after you make the adjustment, you have to snug them back up. And once again, you don't want to strip these things. Okay, now not all ILFs are the same. Here's a wood riser, Carbon Z wood riser, okay? If you look in here, these limb bolts are just going into an insert, and there's no lock on them. So you can just adjust them by putting the Allen key in and adjusting them and measuring the tiller the same way, okay? So what I'll do is we're going to go to put the camera inside, and we're going to listen to the sound with the puffs on and the string on, and I'm going to just get a tape measure and show you don't need a bow square and to check the tillers. It's worth mentioning that when you adjust these limbs, you got to follow the manufacturer's guidelines on how many turns you are allowed from bottomed out to back these out, okay? So, like for instance, I believe on this Carbon Z riser, the most I would back them out is like 3 full turns. And then just because you start even, but believe me, because of where they're placed and where the string is on the riser, when you back these out, you make them even, but the tillers aren't going to be even. They'll be off because of where the center is here. See, it's longer on the bottom, shorter on the top. So once you adjust them, you're allowed to adjust them in or out, all the way bottomed out. Let's say your limbs are marked 35. You might be able to get 2 or 3 pounds more by bottoming them out. So if it's 35, you might be able to get 38. And vice versa. If it's 40 and you have them backed out to the max setting that they recommend you back them out, then you might get less. You might get the other way, 40s, you might be able to get 37 out of them, okay? So I just thought that's worth covering too, okay? So make sure you check and see if your ILF has a locking screw, okay? Make sure after you're done with your adjustments, you snug it up, because I had a bow one time was a little noisy, and what happened was that limb bolt lock nut came loose. The limb don't move, it's under a lot of pressure, but that was rattling around in there, okay? So just wanted to be clear on that. Okay, now we're going to continue with the video. Okay, once again, this is my Hoyt Satori 17-inch, my hunting bow. It's got 45-pound DOS limbs on it. We checked all the bolts to make sure everything was snug and not loose. This is just a bare string, plain old string, no silencers. And this is what I'm talking about, the sound. Deer reacts to that, it'll jump, run away. You'll never get a shot at a deer ever with a bow like this. Now I'm gonna put the string on with the silencers and show you the difference. Okay, I have that Hoyt Satori with the string with the puff silencers. It's a little quieter. We're gonna try something else in a little while too. What I said about the tiller, for those of you new with ILF, it's what you do is you measure the distance from the top limb to the string and the bottom limb, okay? And they're both 6 3/4 on this one. So I shoot 3 under, and I like even tillers to start. So you want to make sure everything's sort of in the range. Usually top limb they adjust a little bit, plus or minus 1/8 of an inch. Okay, so positive tiller actually for the top limb. Okay, now we're going to try something. What I hate seeing is, you see on these limbs in the limb groove there, they put big pieces of Velcro the whole length down. If you're going to put any Velcro, just put a little bit on the bottom, because what happens is if the string is out of alignment a little bit when you string the bow, you'll never know, because you really can't tell the center of the bow. You got that center groove cut. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to leave this like this. I'm going to put a little bit just underneath where, see where the string meets the limb? I'm just going to put a little bit under there, and then we're going to listen to it and see if there's a difference, okay? Okay, if you insist on putting some Velcro, I put it 4 inches down from the tip, approximately, and just a little square where the string lays against it. Be honest, not much of a difference, okay? Now what we're going to do is actually shoot some arrows out of this and see how it sounds when you shoot the arrows. Okay. I basically made this video so you could check and make sure everything is snug, not loose, how to check to make sure it's not loose, and to try and quiet it the best you can. Sometimes if you use really light arrows, it's going to be noisy. There's nothing you can do about it. Okay, so we've got the 500 spine, my hunting arrows on here. We're going to take a shot just to see if you can tell the sound. Hopefully you could tell the difference. I could tell the difference here. But the videotaping real close, you may not be able to tell the difference in the quiet as much as I can here. Let's see. Okay, I'll just do one more. Okay, it's pretty quiet. And once again, if you have a setup with a cushion plunger and a rest, a lot of times these cushion plungers, you got to make sure they're snug or they'll come backing out on you. And just check everything, check everything before you go in the woods. Quivers, everything. Make sure your arrows are inside the quiver head, nice and snug. With the rubber and everything, if they're in there too, that makes it quieter. If you had one arrow in, it's different than having a nice full quiver there too. It keeps it together. But this is solid. If you want information on how to put a side mount quiver on a Satori, check out my video. It'll show you how. Okay, this looks pretty nice, right? All right, thank you for watching. Try to make your bow as quiet as it can. And even if you're a target shooter, check everything, make sure it's snug for safety reasons. Okay, it's drizzling out. The reason I made the video indoors was because it wasn't the greatest day to make a silencing video. Just too much wind, car noise, all kinds of things going on. But hopefully you get a sound, you hear what it sounds like outside, because the target was so close that you couldn't tell whether the noise was the release or the arrow hitting the target. So we're going to just take a shot or two just to see what happens. Okay, I think it's fairly quiet, good enough for hunting. Once again, make sure everything's snug, if not just for hunting, for safety reasons, Okay, just want to take a couple shots. I didn't show you where it hit before. It's starting to rain. I'm done for today. Hope you enjoyed this video. Check out my other videos. Bare Bow Joe.